And I'm really happy to be introducing Patrick. You're working at Element, responsible for backend and deployment as a product manager, right?
Yeah, correct.
And one thing, so I was looking you up online, and I hope it's okay that I say that you're really an open source enthusiast.
Totally.
Because before starting at Element, you were working at OwnCloud, which is also a great open source company. So I would think that you're really an open source enthusiast.
Absolutely.
And even though today you're going to tell us about a closed source solution, which is needed, which has some perks as compared to the open source version, and it is needed to fund the open source project. So I'm really happy to hear, and I'm really convinced that it's necessary that we have this Synapse Pro for TI Messenger. So the stage is yours. Thanks for your talk.
Thank you for that introduction, Philip. Hi everybody. Welcome to my talk. Large-scale multi-tenancy hosting for TI Messenger, in which I will present an innovative approach for basically hosting many small matrix deployments in a cost-efficient and, in the end, economic way. Again, I'm Patrick. I'm with Element, one of the product managers there, and responsible for all things backend. So I'm working with the team behind Synapse, for instance, and all the other core matrix backend components that we develop. And on the other hand, I'm also working with the team behind ESS, the Element Server Suite, meaning our backend distribution for matrix deployments. So just real quick agenda for the talk. First of all, I want to say a few words on TI Messenger. We have heard a lot about it, so I'll keep it short today. I want to focus on the specific small hosts challenge in TI Messenger Pro. Then I will introduce our solution to that challenge, which is Synapse Pro for small hosts. I will talk about how it fits together with ESS, our commercial product, basically, and round it off with what customers can expect from our solution. So let's just real quick dive into the challenge. I think everybody in here knows, meanwhile, what TI Messenger is. So let me really keep it short. It's the secure and sovereign messenger for German healthcare. We have just heard Jan talking about all the specifics and details in TI Messenger. So what's important to understand, the purpose of my talk today is that there are these two use cases. There is TI Messenger IPA and TI Messenger Pro. TI Messenger IPA being basically the product for insured people. Typically this is hosted by the insurance companies, so they are what you have there is usually very large deployments. So that market is basically settled. We've had this legal obligation for the insurance companies in July this year to provide the service. All of them have made it. Market settled. Good. What's different is in TI Messenger Pro, this is starting to take up more slowly. TI Messenger Pro is basically the TIM product for professionals, meaning all doctors, all hospitals, all pharmacies, and all the healthcare professionals, so to speak. And here we have an entirely different use case in a way that there is a requirement in the Gematik specification, or kind of implicit requirement, that asks or demands that every organization participating gets their own domain. That has different reasons. One reason being that Gematik can stay under control, who can actually participate in the closed federation of TI Messenger. Other reasons is data protection, basically keeping the data separate between all the organizations in TI Messenger. And, well, you can guess there are many very small doctors' practices, for instance, who only have a handful of users. So in the end, what you have in this market, you have demand for hundreds of thousands of very, very small matrix backends. And there is a market with 10 to 20 vendors. Most of them have chosen Synapse, being the most popular matrix server, which we as Element have created and have been developing and maintaining. What they choose is the community version of Synapse, which you find on GitHub. And yeah, as I said, it's the community version. It has limitations. It's made for community use cases and not targeted at professional use. So there are different kinds of limitations, many of them for very large single deployments, but also, and that's the point of this talk, it has a very high resource footprint at scale. And at scale means if you run individual very large hosts, which is relevant in TIM-EPA, and also if you run many small hosts. So a small host which with just a handful of users, say 5 users for instance, already has a memory footprint of around 150 megabytes, which is a lot if you want to host 50,000 of those small hosts. And it's very costly. It's almost impossible to do it in an economic way. So thank God there is not only the community version of Synapse, but there is also Synapse Pro, which is our commercial implementation of Synapse, which is targeted at professional use, as you could have guessed. It ships as part of ESS Pro, which I will introduce tomorrow at lunchtime. So more on that in another talk tomorrow. Logically or naturally, the mission of Synapse Pro is to address all the limitations that you've just seen in the community edition, so that you can basically scale easily, save resources, and ease operations with that. Important to understand is that Synapse Pro is available in 2 flavors. It's basically 2 products for different use cases. There is Synapse Pro for large hosts, basically targeting all use cases above 100 users up into the millions, which we will not look into today in this talk. There is, on the other hand, Synapse Pro for small hosts, which is made for, as the name says, hosting many small matrix backends in a cost-efficient way. And that's what we will look into now. So basically, Synapse Pro for small hosts introduces multi-tenancy capabilities for matrix deployments, so that you have a better cost efficiency. The main idea, main goal, is to reduce memory consumption per tenant and to reduce also the personal costs for operations, because these 2 are the big cost drivers for the industry, basically. So what we have done, basic idea here, is that you run multiple distinct Synapse tenants, home servers, in one Python process. We call that a Synapse shard. So instead of deploying one Synapse instance with one domain and one tenant in the end, which is what you usually do, you deploy one Synapse instance and you can host multiple tenants with multiple domains in there. What you get there is still fully featured matrix servers. They are compliant with TI Messenger, for instance. You segregate the tenant data on a database schema level. In addition to that, you get a tenant management API that allows you to provision and deprovision the tenants in there. And we deliver it together with a Kubernetes controller that basically manages these shards and allows you to integrate with continuous deployment tooling and allows you to set up GitOps processes for automation. So we have come quite through a journey over time. It's almost a year ago, I think, when we started building this project. So again, what we have built is a modified version of Synapse. We've initially built it as a prototype to basically prove that the idea can work. We have set it up as a cloud POC, have done a lot of tests and demos for the industry. So some people here in the room have seen that quite some time ago. And meanwhile, it's ready for production. So basically what you do when you deploy this modified version of Synapse, you deploy one shard, Synapse shard we call it meanwhile, and that can basically inhabit up to 50 tenants. There is a limitation due to this still being Python, still being single-threaded, so all these 50 tenants can only use one CPU core, and we have seen in our load test that if there are small tenants with not much load, this can go up to about 50 tenants in one shard. As I said, comes with a Kubernetes controller that manages the shards and also the tenant allocations between the shards. It's very smart. Like it even does quality of service functionality. So if you have one tenant on a shard that uses a lot of resources, has a lot of load, the controller would go as far as move this one tenant to another shard that has less load. Together with building this modified version of Synapse, we have also built a load testing suite, basically, to prove that this can work, and also to, basically illustrate the savings that the solution can provide. In that load test, we have basically 5 users per tenant, which is a typical number in TI Messenger. We send a certain number of, or we have each user in a certain number of DMs, in public rooms. We use federation, we use encryption, and on average, we send 2 events per second against all these tenants, against one shard. If you compare that with matrix.org, that has on average 35 events per second. So 2 events per second is already substantial, I would say. So with that, we have built up a case study where we compare the memory consumption of the community version of Synapse with memory consumption of Synapse Pro for small hosts in this sharding mode to basically illustrate the savings. So terminology is clear, I think. We have used the load test to basically come up with the results in this case study. And what you can see here is, I think, the core message. In blue is the community edition of Synapse that you all know. In red, Synapse Pro for small hosts. So you have on the left the memory consumption, and to the right the number of tenants, basically. So if you use the community version of Synapse, you always have around 150 megabytes. That is even with the load test running against it, so that's under load. And if you use the sharding Synapse Pro application, you can see how the memory consumption per tenant goes down in dependence of the number of tenants, so that for 50 tenants in one shard, we only have 19 megabytes of memory for one tenant. So here is basically a depiction of the relative savings. When you look at the 50 tenants graph, that is almost 90% savings, so very substantial. And you can also look at it on a per shard basis. So this is the memory consumption of one of these shards in dependence of the number of tenants. So again, if you look at the 50, which we think is a realistic number of tenants per shard, you are at about a gigabyte of memory for hosting 50 matrix hosts, even under load. Here again, another proof point. This is from our load testing. This is a screenshot from a real Grafana dashboard. Some have seen it. This is like our load testing suite has run against one shard for half an hour. On the top you see events and times, which are not very high, and basically demonstrate that the system, even under load, operates stable and can transport the messages in a way a user would expect it to. You can see the CPU graph on the bottom left. It doesn't reach the limits. And you can see, and that's the most important thing in the end, you can see the memory graph here, which is, I don't know, around 600 megabytes or something for 50 tenants under load. So that alone, I think, is very substantial. Just to illustrate this a little bit further, we have calculated this over 5 years, which could be a more or less realistic example of how TI Messenger Pro could take off. And here again, blue, the community edition or version, and red, Synapse Pro. So in year 5, with 50,000 tenants in the end, you'd have more than 7 terabytes of memory usage on average if you just would deploy individual Synapse community instances. You'd be at less than 1 terabyte with our sharded Synapse Pro solution. And you can all calculate what that means in terms of money using your own pricing structures. We think it's very substantial, and we think we have basically solved that big challenge in TI Messenger with this product. Important to understand is that Synapse Pro doesn't stand in an isolated way. It's integrated with ESS, the Element Server Suite. So basically here summarizing what you get and how you can use it, or how this product is supposed to be used in the end. You get the Synapse Pro product, which in the end is multi-tenancy for Synapse hosting. You get a Kubernetes controller that basically deploys these Synapse shards. Each shard, as I said, can host up to 50 tenants, depending on usage patterns in the end. And the controller dynamically manages the shards and their tenant allocations. In the end, as you have seen from our case study, you get up to 90% infrastructure cost savings, and you get operational cost savings due to automation. There are 3 different modes how you can use Synapse Pro for small hosts. You can use it standalone if you already have a TI Messenger stack with Messenger proxy, for instance, and want to continue using your implementation and just want to benefit from the Synapse Pro multi-tenancy functionality. You can do that. You can also use it together with our ESS stack, that is ESS Pro, our general professional matrix backend, or you can use it together with ESS for TI Messenger, which is Elements TI Messenger backend implementation. Important to understand, if it hasn't become clear already, you can also use it, or it is supposed to be used in a way that you manage your fleets with ESS. So if you look at the case study, in the end you had 50,000 individual tenants, and you don't want to manage them manually. You want automation for that. So ESS is built in a way based on Helm charts that you can very easily plug it into a continuous deployment tooling like Argo CD, for instance. That's basically also what we have done in our demo environment, and you can use that to manage whole fleets of matrix servers, completely automated. In the end, when you want to deploy a new tenant, you just provide a config file in a Git repository, and everything else happens automatically. Same for deprovisioning, obviously. Important also to understand is that the large hosts solution, Synapse Pro for large hosts, and the small host solution can be combined. So you can say in the beginning, when you deploy a new tenant, this is going to be a large host. This is going to have more than 100 users right from the outset. Or you say, this is a small host, say 5 users or something, and it will deploy either way and optimize for either use case. And even better, you can switch between them. So if you deployed originally a 5 users small host, and that one has grown to more than 100 users, you can very easily switch it over from the sharded small hosts solution onto a large host solution that will optimize resource usage for that use case. Yeah, so that's all very easy. As I said, it integrates with our TI Messenger solution, which basically is a special version of ESS Pro. You can come to my talk tomorrow at lunchtime in the other room, where I will introduce our ESS stack and tell you a bit more about it. But basically what we provide here is a complete TI Messenger backend coming with all the matrix functionality, which is Synapse Pro with certain TI Messenger modules. It's SPG as the TI Messenger proxy implementation, a federation list service in the push gateway. Comes with the same commitments and services as ESS Pro. What we are proud of is that you can deploy it in Pro and in EPA mode. So for either way, for either TI Messenger use case, you can very easily swap it and deploy the right solution. And also important to mention is that it provides a very, very modern and scalable implementation of the Messenger proxy that only has a resource footprint of 10 megabytes in idle. So I'm emphasizing this because there is a reference implementation of the Messenger proxy that has around 400 megabytes of idle footprint, and you would deploy that also for each tenant. So you can imagine how substantial that is with 50,000 tenants. And yeah, this is a proven solution. It's accredited together with our partners from T-Systems for the Barmer health insurance and also for others. So it's gone through the Gematik accreditation process. It's accredited, it's proven, and a high quality solution. So just summarizing what customers can expect from this solution. First of all, you get a solution for this big challenge in TI Messenger. It's unique. I'm not aware of any other vendor in the market that has a solution to this. You get 90% reduced resource footprint for small host deployments, and due to all the automation capabilities, you get operational cost reductions. You don't need to worry about any of the matrix components yourself. You basically outsource all of that to us. You get consulting if you need it. You get long-term support versions of Synapse that are proprietary. So twice a year we branch off and have dedicated versions of Synapse that we only supply with security fixes, so that you basically are safe from any upstream contributions that would put your accreditation at risk potentially. You get a commercial license for Synapse, so that you would that would free you from the obligations of the HPL. You get certifications, whole list of certifications, and you get true L3 support from us. I say true because we are the code owners. We are the ones who are developing Synapse. We have the experts with us, and we are the ones best entitled to support you on any detailed questions on the Synapse code base. Also, last but not least, when there's a security issue, that's a serious topic, it will be raised to us because we are the code owners. We will be the first to notice about this. And if you're a customer of us, we give a commitment that we inform you in advance. So before we inform the broad public about this, you get notified by it, and you can basically react to that before it becomes general knowledge. It's also quite important, I think. So yeah, what's next? As I said, the thing is ready for integration and for production use. We have the first POCs running. important to understand, it's not only for TI Messenger. So any service provider that wants to host small matrix backends, this is your solution. Talk to us. Let us know about your use case. If you haven't yet, start your POC tomorrow or next week. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions from the audience? I will also have a look at the chat room where you can also send your questions, but I have one in the audience. Perfect.
Hi, thanks for the... Hello? Yeah, you can hear me. Hi, thanks for the talk. Just a question. Do you have customers already who are running that stack outside the Messenger space, so the health space, so to speak?
Yes, we are working with a few customers. Most are from TI Messenger because there it's just an important topic, but we also have customers outside of TI Messenger who are interested in this topic, yes.
Okay, and the solution is deployed in Kubernetes, basically?
Yes. Yeah, we deliver it as a Helm chart, and you deploy it in Kubernetes, exactly.
Okay, and the certifications basically come with the stack when you sell it?
Yes.
Okay.
They are part of our commercial offering.
Okay, but you can still run the solution in any cloud you prefer?
If it's Kubernetes based, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, then we have our first question from the chat. I'm just going to read it out. So
I did it.
Thanks for using it, finally. So I'm just going to read it out. Does Synapse Pro have benefits for single-tenant deployments?
For single-tenant deployments, if they're larger hosts, meaning more than 100 users, so this is not what we've looked at today, then yes. So that's basically our large hosts solution, which optimizes for larger hosts, which optimizes in terms of memory and resource usage, and also gives you automatic scalability up and down, gives you high availability, and things like rolling updates for basically professional deployment practices.
And then there's the follow-up question. Is there any way to obtain Synapse Pro for community use cases?
Right now it's part of our commercial offering. It's not open source. You can always talk to us and we might find a way. But yeah, it's not just freely available.
Okay, so Emma, you heard it. You can talk to Patrick about it. Thanks for the question. More questions in the audience? Yes.
So how do you manage like the separate source code repositories? Like, do you have separate code repositories? Or how do you manage the license differences between them? How do you integrate them, basically?
I'm not an engineer, but as far as I know, our Synapse Pro for small host solution is a private repository that uses the community version of Synapse as a library, kind of. That's how it works.
Okay, more questions? Then let me, just for security reasons, check the chat one more time. Yes, Emma, I guess the best thing would be to directly talk to Patrick. He can also join the room afterwards, ask your follow-up questions there. And yeah, so since we don't have any more questions here, thank you everybody for joining the healthcare track at the Matrix conference.